Okay, hello and welcome back. So today I thought I'd start a video to show you how I'm going to achieve the river scene on the layout. Probably should have started it a few steps previously to where it is now, but at least for once you're going to get how I've done something rather than here it's finished. So starting off, we had the bare baseboards. First thing I did was to cut the front shaped out of 5mm plywood, which, as I've got all around the inside of the layout, it'll just help finish it off, look a bit more professional, and it'll also help to keep any water within this certain scene when I decide to pour water into it, realistic water that is. So first thing I did was to use spare packaging foam on both sides of the embankments to give shape and definition, and also on the other side of the bridges on either side. And then I used some spare bits of shaper sheet which I had left just to cover that foam, and just to again add a bit more definition rather than the blocky look of the foam. I then covered the whole scene in Sculptamold, which has been a bag and a half, so what's that, just over £4, so there's quite a lot of Sculptamold in there. And I've used that to give definition on the riverbed. I'm going for the tide out scenario, so there's going to be loads of mud on this side here from the jetty, which will be there, over to this mound you can just see in the centre now, will be dried out mud. And on the other side of that mound, on the final arches of the river bridge and up to that outflow there, I'm thinking I'm going to have a bit more flowing water coming down into this corner, so it'll give a bit of variety, and it's something I've seen on rivers on my travels, especially on the River Helston, which is where I'm going to be taking a lot of my inspiration from for this scene. So Sculptamold's been down for at least 24 hours. I've had a bit of a heater on today to dry it out, and it is rock hard now. So next step is going to be to paint it with an earth colour. I normally just use the graduate acrylics from like the range or somewhere, the raw and burnt umbers, but I thought I'd try this one this time, which is a Woodland Scenics Earth Colours Earth Undercoat. Thought I'd try this because whereas with the other paints I normally cover it up with a lot of scenic material, on this one with the mud look I'm going for, there might be quite a lot which is still on visible display, so thought we'd try this and just see what kind of finish it gives. Right, so I'll get away and start painting. Okay, so it's now a couple of hours later and just thought I'd do a quick update. So we had the 2 coats of that Woodland Scenic Earth paint which dried well, and then I've just gone over the top with a couple of Tamiya acrylics. We've got the lighter khaki, which I've used lower down the riverbed just to give a bit of variation to the patches of mud which are slightly higher, and then I've used the khaki drab further up the banks just to try and blend it in. It's like a darker earth tone, and I think it's still wet at the moment, so it'll change colour again, but it's looking good. You can see a lot of the variation in height and detail there, which is what's going to become the riverbed. I'm really quite pleased with how it's coming on at the moment. So we'll leave that to dry overnight, and then tomorrow we'll start adding some dirt, and then I've got a variety of about 7 or 8 different products from Woodland Scenic range to put on the top as well. But I'll keep you updated and see how we get on from here. Alright, bye for now. Okay, so here are the products which I'm going to be using to finish off the river scene. Firstly, we've got some dirt from the garden, which has been baked in the oven. The left hand side is fine and has been sieved. The right hand side is coarser rocks which wouldn't fit through the sieve, and we use a combination of both. And then after we've sealed that in with some watered down PVA, we're going to use a mixture of Fine Turf Soil by Woodland Scenics, which complements that dirt very well because it's a lighter colour, so you get a bit of variety in tone. And then we're going to use some of this Jarvis Dark Earth Scatter, which again gives you a bit of more variety in tone to the colour. After that's all been sealed in, we'll move on to the next layer, which will be a mixture of Woodland Scenics Fine Burnt Grass, Coarse Turf Burnt Grass, Fine Turf Earth, Fine Turf Yellow Grass, and Fine Turf Weeds. And then we're going to use some of the Gauge Master Brown Scatter in the area where the trees are going to be. And then finally, on top of that, if I ever get round to it, there'll be some bushes, trees, and some leaf fall, and obviously static grass as well eventually. Okay, and here's the scene. So as you can see, I've already applied the earth and dirt from the garden, and also the Woodland Scenics Fine Soil and the Gauge Master Dark Earth Scatters. Paint dried really well overnight. I got carried away this morning and just got on with it. But up to now, zoom in a little bit, you can see on this banking here, we've got some of the larger earth and dirt from the garden at the bottom and also at the top. So you can imagine this is going to be a steep wooded embankment, and some of those rocks and earth will have fallen down in rainfall, etc., and settled at the bottom in what will be the shore of the river. Working our way along up to the culvert, and then under the bridges, back down the muddy embankments, across to the pier, and then back up the side where the slipway will be and the small fishing huts. And just to show you, carry it on obviously, and it goes all the way across to under the viaduct. Yeah, so up to now I'm really pleased with how it's coming along. It's getting that generally muddy looking feel. So I'm going to add a bit of the greener scenery now on the two embankments, which will hopefully brighten the board up a little bit. And then the middle bit, I've got some special Vallejo airbrush paints to try and spray later through my airbrush and get a bit more depth and tone onto where the water would eventually sit. Okay, bye for now. Okay, so here's the scene again, with all of the Woodland Scenics scatters and turf applied. As you can probably see, I've also stuck the jetty in place now, and also the Batman net loft. So I'll just quickly show you around. So on this side now, you can see we've got various turfs which I described in the last clip, and we've also got some dead fall, which is real wood twigs. This will be supplemented with trees with actual foliage on, and bushes and static grass at some point. But for now, as part of the basic scene, we've got this. So you've got dirt, little boulders and wood which has fallen down into the river. A few dead trees on the banks. Moving over, you've got this spit of small land coming off the bridge support, which is basically going to separate the river into water and dry. And then coming over this side, you've got the jetty with some mud and rocks in front of it. And then you're going to be coming up the muddy bank here where there are lots of small boats. You're going to have the net loft. You've got quite a steep cliff there up to the yard, which is hence the reason for the yard crane. That area there is going to have the staircase, stone staircase, and there's going to be a few stone buildings and fishing accessories in this area. Pleased with how it's looking up to now, apart from the main riverbed. So I'm going to try and spray paint that with a few different mud colours and see if I can get more of a realistic mud looking effect for that area. So I'll grab the paints and I'll be back. So here's the paints that I'm going to have a go with. We've got some Vallejo Panzeraces Dark Mud. We've got some Vallejo UK Light Mud and some Vallejo Mud Brown. The UK Light Mud is probably the colour that I'm wanting it to be. So what I'll do is I'll start with the dark mud, spray the whole area, and then work and blend outwards with the UK Light Mud to reach the banks. And then the mud brown can be the banks, but I'm not too keen on the colour of that mud brown at the moment, so I'll probably mix it with the UK Light Mud to get a little bit of a toned down colour. So start with the dark and work outwards and get lighter, which should visually make it look deeper and more varied in tone. Okay, so we'll see how we get on. So you'll have to excuse me, but I forgot to do a video after I'd sprayed the riverbed. Took loads of pictures to the Facebook page, was really pleased, and then forgot to do a video. And now I've put the first coat of the PVA down, which is going to form the water. As you can see, it's still wet. It is drying, but at the moment it's wet and it goes all the way back. So yeah, so I can't really, well, you can kind of see. Look, I went for with the paints. There's 3 different tones of paints, and then a few random mixes of the 3 as well. Really pleased with it. So we'll just have to see how this PVA dries now. See if it creates the look of the water that hopefully I'm going for. Right, well I'll be back once this coat's dry then. Bye for now. Okay, so here's another update on the scene. As you can see, I got a little bit carried away and did a bit more than just a PVA for the river. But it's had 2 coats of PVA. I'm just about to do the 3rd coat and kind of start to see the effects now of water. Looking good at the moment, and I'm quite pleased with how it's going. And as you did see a minute ago, I have started to build up the river bank scene. So we've got the modified Batman fishing trawler, which is moored up against the quay, and we've got a worker taking advantage of the low tide to do some external hull repairs. Going back, we've got a landy. We're bringing some mended lobster pots back to the scene. We've got a small stone hut, which is where the fishermen would probably have teas and things whilst they're getting ready to go sailing to sea. We've got some stone stairs going up to the loading ramp, and then we've got piles and piles of lobster pots. We've got another scratch built stone hut which has got some fishing nets inside, the spare fishing nets for the boat, and then behind that we've got a couple of moored up dinghies, one just on the quayside there, on the riverbank there, and then we've got one which is next to the net hut, some more lobster pots, and a small box there with some essentials for the dinghies, ropes, fenders, fishing buoys, etc. And as you can see, it's a busy day down at the quay, and the HM Coast Guard have come to pay a visit to see if there's any smuggling going on this small riverside port. Quite busy, but I think I like the way it's going. Right, move things around a little bit, but as you can see, it's looking good up to now. So I think what's left is a couple more coats of PVA for the bed, and then as part of the back scene I need to paint where there's a white line at the moment with some earthy colours, and then I need to do some work on getting that Watermill and water wheel set in. So I'll carry on and I'll be back with another video which will probably be the final one. So bye for now. Okay, so this is going to be the final update from the river scene for now. I've done 5 coats of PVA and then a couple of coats of Mod Podge on top. I only had the matte one, so then I finished it off with some Humbrol gloss coat to give it a shiny look, but I'm pretty happy with how it's looking now for a river at low tide. Pretty much all I need to do now is to add some bushes and trees to the banks and underneath the viaducts at the back, and some static grass, but I'll get round to that when I do the rest of the layout. But for now the scenery's at the same stage as every other part of scenery on the layout. So I'll just quickly spin round, show you some bits and pieces. So here we've got the back of my fishing boat, which I modified and added detailing parts to. Junior from Greek, which is dried out next to the jetty, which is an Ancarton Models wooden kit. We've got a little fella there making most of low tide to do some repairs, running repairs to the boat. To the left we've got a flatbed landy with some lobster pots in it and a small fisherman's hut on a concrete hard standing base which are made from tile grout. Might add lighting to that at some point. It's got an issue at the moment because it sits on top of the control panel for the layout, so there's no room under it. So I'm going to think maybe of using a light with a small watch battery. We've got a bench outside for the fishermen to rest on, more lobster pots, a rickety old shed with more lobster pots and fishing nets. Got some stone steps going up to the loading bay, where we've got 2 bloater wagons waiting for the incoming fish. We've got a dinghy tied up with supplies next to it, some more lobster pots outside a fishing net hut, and another dinghy just on the bank of the river. The Coast Guard have come along just to check that nothing is going on at such a small cove. And then you might be able to see down there, you've got some lights reflecting off the water under the bridges. Now this is something that I worked on today. I had the idea last night. We'll go over the bridges. And we've got a watermill with a warehouse, a little cameo scene with a man outside, and an old style Ford van who's just come to pick up some goods from the mill, fully lit. And then we've got tarmac road, again made out of tile grout, which goes off under the bridges, and a small fence to stop anyone falling into the river, which will be higher obviously once the tide comes in. And then this side hasn't really changed throughout, but we've got an outlet for bringing water underneath the tracks, and then we've got a variety of fallen twigs and branches and leaf litter, which will all be backed up once I add static grass and bushes to the area. I hope the camera's picking up just the gloss nature of this water and how much like mud it really looks, because my aim was to make it look like real thick gloopy river mud, and I'm so pleased with how it's come out. I have got some more detailed pics on my Facebook page, but if anyone's got any questions on anything I've done on this scene, just give us a shout, and I hope everyone likes it. Alright, what I might do in a minute is just flick the lights out and just show you that cameo scene at the back in the dark, so I'll see you in a second. Okay, last one for now then. Here's the Watermill scene at night with the main room lights out, and best part of it for me, which really makes it, is if we come back and down, you can see the lights just reflecting off the water, which I hope the camera's picking it up there, but just as it would in real life. like if you've got the moon or any building lights reflecting off water. I think it's picking it up, but anyway, that's a good effect for me, very calming. Right, well, bye for now. Any questions, stick them in the comments. See you later.